Hey guys, and welcome everyone to this video I'm making on AVA Dog Tag with a list of competitive changes that I deem necessary, at least for the new game as soon as we're going to approach open beta for full release and onwards, because there are quite a few things in the game that still need to change. So I made a list for it, and with that I made a list of 26 quality of life notes and 2 expectations, which I hope to see somewhere in the future. So we're going to start off with the thing that is most viable, and definitely the thing that is probably the biggest issue together with the gun mechanics. But first of the sound, the direction of the sound is really off. Like I had this situation, I was playing in India, I was playing in the garden, and I could hear sound on my right. I was like, okay, based on the direction of the sound, this guy's in mid, and he's walking up to connector 2. But I also heard the surface sound, and the surface sound told me that he was in mini. He was indeed actually in mini, but yeah, because of the surface sound you can tell. But the direction of the sound is just very much off. For me, it feels like it has something to do with the walls or objects not being taken into account, but the direction of the sound is off in such a way that you feel that enemies are somewhere where they are really not. And that is a big issues when you're going to play competitively, because if you think like, hey, the guy's coming over there, you look there and you get shot in the back, you're like, what just happened, right? So that's for me the main thing. The second bit are the gun mechanics. I can tell you pretty much a lot about it, but I think Carl Snowshovel really described that perfectly in his video, so I'm going to show a little bit of that video. Basically what he notes there is that the upwards recoil is much higher, so is the bloom, and the recoil decay, which is the crosshair reset. Radek has already done something about it, but it seems like it's not fully there yet. So I'm going to move over to the video bit, so you can see that. So this is where he talks about it. We'll just listen to him and see what he says.
And recoil decay is the recoil decay speed is the amount that it goes down, how fast it goes back down to center. So if you spray your gun, you can see the recoil climb in AVA is almost double from the original game, whereas before it would go up and then it would cap out right here, and then it would just go back and forth. Now it just continuously climbs. There is a cap all the way at the top after about 20 bullets, I would say. Right here is the cap, and you can see the climb is just insane now. It's almost double the recoil as before. And the other thing you notice is the recoil decay speed is about twice as fast as well. So you'll notice if I spray, look how fast it comes back down. That's so fast.
It's very quick,
whereas before it would be about that same speed, but with about this much recoil. So now, the reason why that's important is because when you're in a gunfight and you're shooting at people and you're trying to tap them, look what happens. I'm trying to control the recoil. Look how far down my crosshair goes. I'm all the way at the ground now after trying to control this spread.
Alright, so we're going to leave it at this bit for now. As we switch back. So this is the gun mechanics. I think they do need to change. It also talks about the recoil decay, the crosshair reset, and those are definitely things to use as a model. And hopefully Radek is going to do something with that, because this is a major issue in the game. Moving on to remark 3, that is the aim punch. I actually started to notice this more lately. I haven't really noticed it before till I actually start to pay attention to it. But I mean, aim punch for snipers is fine. I really don't care about that. I think that's okay. But there's quite some aim punch for rifles and pointmen. Like sometimes I get hit, and I actually have a clip about that. I was in a 1v2 fight, and I got dinked by a para. I didn't die, which also doesn't make sense, but that's something else. And because of the aim punch that I got, even though it was headshot, so maybe headshot aim punch is doable, but because of the aim punch I got, I won the fight because my M4 aim flicked up, and I hit him in the head, and he died, and I eventually 1v2'd that, so that was a bit weird. But you can also lose the situation in, so it adds a little bit of RNG element to the game, and I don't think that should be necessary. So for me, I think removing aim punch for pointmans and rifles is very good. Having aim punch for headshots only, debatable. And yeah, the aim punch is this for snipers. I think that's fine. But yeah, definitely for pointman and rifle, stuff needs to change. Then the damage drop off. Yeah, This is the issue for the rifleman class. I mean, we've noticed that the pointmen and the snipers are much better than riflemen. A lot of people are saying like, hey, snipers are overpowered, but I don't really think they're overpowered. I think the issue is that the rifles are very underpowered. It has to do with the damage drop-off. Now, what we see, a bullet, since it travels, it's obviously going to lose some damage as far as it progresses. But it loses so much damage that it almost makes no sense. Like, I was on airplane, I was in the middle of the bridge, and I was shooting at a guy all the way far back near the pillar in Blue Room, in airplane. I checked this later, this is about 50 meters. I made a headshot with him in para. Snipers don't have a helmet, so it's a ×4 multiplier. I did 80 damage. In the old AVA, this would always be a one-hit. And if I have to believe other people, at least Carl in this video said that the headshot range with the para is now 12 meters instead of 17 of 18 meters, then I'm not sure if these values are true, but if you look at the difference, it's a 50% decrease compared to the old AVA. And even there, people are already complaining about, hey, the damage range is not good enough. So at this point, what that does, the damage drop-off, it makes that sprayable guns are just much, much better than guns like a para. Unless you are at a range where you can obviously one-tap, so more at the closer range. But then you have the pointmans, will just spray you down. If you get a little bit of aim punch, yeah, you can't do much. So damage drop-off, again, I mean, it's a fairly easy tweak. They just need to diminish that a little bit, make the damage drop-off a little bit less, maybe like 25-30%, even experiment with like 50 or so, see what is better, and then you'll see that the one hit headshot range will increase, and thus the higher damage guns will also be more viable. Moving on then, we'll look at some utility. First of the smoke grenades, just to say plain blank, they're useless. They're literally useless. I always use like a damage grenade and a smoke, because we only have 2 utilities, it's the next bit. But the smoke now, it lasts like 8 seconds. You can easily see through it because the plume is not that big, so it's too small. It's already easy to see through. And on top of that, you have hit markers through the smoke. I mean, what are you supposed to do with that? That's completely useless. I mean, smoke should be about 15 seconds. I think in games like CSGO, they're closer to 20, but I think about 15 is fine. Maybe change the color even. I mean, they're very white at this point. Make them more gray. That's already hard to see through. And if you make it a little bit bigger or a bit thicker, it's already much harder to look through. And yeah, in addition to that, which is one of my remarks later, the hit markers. What I want to do with the hit markers, personally, I don't really mind too much. If you want to remove them completely or disable them from competitive or whatever, seeing names through smoke should not be possible in any way. So I think that reflects perfectly fine on the smoke grenades. They just need to be buffed. That's it. Done. Nothing else. And then for the utilities, in the original AVA, we always used to have 3 utility slots, and they changed that to 2. And it makes me wonder, why are you fixing something that is not broken? Like, having 3 utility slots like we had before. 1 damage grenade, 1 flash, 1 smoke. It just makes sense. You have enough utility to push sites. I would also recommend to go for the 2 smokes for the pointman class, which they had before, so that pointmans have their own unique play in competitive, and that just opens up for much more. I mean, I had a discussion with that with core testers like a while back. At this point, you have 10 utility per team per round. So if as a team you're executing a push, using like a damage grenade to clear out, maybe 2, you use 2 smokes to cover up the side, and you throw a flash and you move in. You've gone through half of your utility. If you realize during that push, like, hey, it's not going to work, we have to rotate, you don't really have enough utility anymore to set up, because obviously the start of the round, you're going to use some nade spots somewhere through. So maybe you have like 3 or 4 utility left. And if you already used 2 smoke grenades and a flash, pretty much everyone's going to carry a damage grenade. So you have 2 either flash or smokes left. So you can use like 1 smoke and flash in and then go, but the rest of the spots will not be covered up. Then the defending team will be highly at an advantage. And additionally, what this creates, when we now have 2 utility slots, it means that you want to use different utility as an attacker compared to a defender. Because a defender, well, we realize smokes are useless, so you're not going to use that. Flashes, why are you going to push the enemy? You're most likely better off with 2 damage grenades most of the time. And yeah, for snipers, maybe a flash grenade in case you get pushed. But that also creates a different type of gameplay, you know, for the EU and the NRF side. And that's something, we can cover it right away, I think. that it has to do with the loadouts. Create separate sets of loadouts. We had 2 before, make it like 2 or 3 again. Have us change the grenades there as well. Then it can be like, okay, since we already have such a different type of playstyle that you need as EU and NRF, make us have different loadouts that we can select by just pressing F1, F2, F3 more often. And then we can select through that and use a different setup for EU and NRF, and also change a little bit with guns if you see that fit. I think that's a very, very good idea to go through that. Moving on to the mods. I'm quite happy about the mods on some degree. I mean, at the start when we first played the game, there were very few mods in alpha. So we talked to Red Dragon like, hey, we need the mods like before. The system was great, re-implement it. We saw it return this CBT, so I was very happy about that. And the selection is very good. I don't think I have to complain about that. However, what it used to do before is it also changed the gun's behavior. At this point, what it does, you use a long-range barrel, you get more range, less damage. Okay, makes sense. ROF speaks for itself. Damage, more damage, less range. Okay, makes sense. In the old AVA, though, this would also change the gun behavior. For example, the para, the recoil patterns, the bloom, they would also change with the barrel. The crosshair size even would change with that. Those type of small things, I think, make the modding of a gun so much more viable, because at this point, you can choose to go for no mods because the gun will behave exactly the same. If you make it behave differently because of mods, that's just so... it just makes the guns way more unique, and it means that user preference even comes more into play with that, because you have to not only mod the gun for stats, but also mod the guns based on how they're going to feel like, how they're going to play. And that is something that I think is very, very important for the game. Wow, we've already been talking for 12 minutes. We're now halfway through. let's move on quick. The crosshair zoom, I'll just keep it short. If you don't have a scope modification and you try to zoom in with the gun, it doesn't work. You can't do that. I mean, I've seen some guns I think you could do that with. I think it was the Gorilla, I'm not sure. But with other guns like Para or whatever, it doesn't work. You should just reuse that again. The crosshair zoom is really nice if you want to go for 1 dings at range. And make sure that when you do that, the recoil and possibly the ROF also changes, so it doesn't become too overpowered to zoom in all the time. Then in India, there's a very OP pixel spot. I'll try to include like a video of that. But basically, if you stand on the one side, you see like a metal rack in front of you. If you crouch, you can look through the metal rack onto the stairs 1, where people move out. I haven't yet tested it. I believe it's a one-way pixel spot. But what it already does is, because you have so much visibility, it's just way too overpowered as a defending team. So they need to remove that spot whatsoever. Then the hit markers, we went over that. Server stability. The server stability actually was really good in Alpha in the first CBT. We tested, well, Nesquik tested it, and he figured out we had about 60 tick rate for the servers, which is really good. He's also tested it this final CBT. We now have a lot more players, and the servers are being stressed a little bit more, and it's about 20 now. So it's closer to, I think, the value of the old AVA, but this is not what we want. We do need the servers to improve a little bit, because I think what it also does is create false pings or a fake ping. As I've been dying a lot behind the walls. I mean, before I had about 30 ping that seemed to be correct. Now I have 1 or 2 ping, but it doesn't feel like that. So yeah, server stability is definitely something that needs to change. Variety in guns, next bit, more variety in guns. That's something I'm opting for. I think for the rifleman class, we've done pretty okay. I wouldn't really know what to add for that. Maybe like a machine type of gun, like the MG4K or the M249, but it's not something I really bother about. But when I look at it, I've noted down 4 types of guns that they still need to add. 1 pointman, this would be an additional shotgun. We have 1 shotgun, the Remington, and it has bullet for bullet reload. And the old AVA also had box reload shotguns. I think that adds a different type of play to it, because the shotgun, it takes a little bit longer to reload, but you have more bullets reloaded right away. So I would opt for adding the SPAS 15, because at this point it's a fight between the SPAS 15 and the Saiga 12. I think the SPAS 15 is much more iconic to use for that. So I'd opt for that. For snipers, there are actually 3 that I'd like to see added in the game. We currently have 3 bolt action sniper rifles. So you have the PSG, which is by far the best. The AWM, also really good. The SV, complete garbage. What I'd like to see added, the FRF2, it's basically a better SV. It has 10 ammo as well. It should be a reliable sniper with a bit more ammo. That's what the FR should be like. And then no wall banging capabilities such like the AWM. Then, in my opinion, we need a high-powered slow sniper, the TPG or the PGM. Either is fine. It's just a little bit slower, low scope in speed. The same wallbanging capabilities as the PSG, and always one hit shot. Even if you hit the arms or the legs or whatever, it's a one hit. Done. That makes the gun stronger, but because it's slower, it evens out and it doesn't create a balancing problem that we've seen in the past. And then finally, a quick but a more likely to tag sniper. So I would opt for either the DSR or the Mosin Nagant. They're both very iconic. But just having a quick scoping sniper, it will tang quite frequently, so you need to use your pistol a lot, and by that you will also balance out that sniper. So those 4 guns, or selection of those 4 guns, I'd like to see added. Moving on to the win options. At this point, we are, at least for competitive play, what I've noticed in the past 4.5 years in the old AVA2, we're quite limited to what we can do. We have the 7 wins for competitive play, and that's basically it. For the Nations Challenge and the leagues, we have experimented with different formats. So we went for 9 rounds a half, 18 in total. But to do that, we had to restart the game basically halfway through. There's no actual win option that covers this. So I think what would be good to do is adding a 9-win option to the game. So tournament plays like 5 and 7 we have, but then with 9, that makes for more interesting plays perhaps for certain tournaments, and options with overtime, so like 16, 18 and 20 rounds like we've done before. I just explained with the Nation Challenge and the seasonal leagues would also be very good to do, so we can just have a little bit more of interesting play, longer games as well. So I think that's good. Then something that came in during this final CBT as well, the T stat board. They've completely revamped that, and they've actually done really well. You can see the damage perfectly fine. You can see where you hit him on the body. You can see the damage multiplier. It gives a lot of information. It's super good, but instantly updates. So as soon as you hit a guy, you just go behind a wall, you press T, and you're like, okay, I did this amount of damage. I did like 74 damage in total. Okay, he's 26 HP. I have a pair. If I hit him once, he's dead. Like, it gives so much information, and throughout the round as well. So what I think it should do, there are 2 options that you can basically make it. It should not be possible to see it during the round, not even in casual play. You should not be able to see it as when you're still alive. When you're dead, I mean, okay, it can be visible. But you could also opt for disabling it altogether till the round is over, like Faceit does for CSGO, for example. So there are some things that you can do with it, but definitely don't show it during the round. Let's see, we'll move on. These are some smaller remarks that I now have, so I can quickly go over these. Lower resolutions. A lot of pro players noted to me that lower resolutions is what they wish, so the 1024 times 768 and 800 by 600. I think that's a good thing to add in general. It's just more resolutions. Damage recalculation. This is a big thing though, because as a character, if you see a character, you see him standing like this, right? With his arms out. But because he stands like this with his gun, you see that half of my body is currently covered with my arms. If the bullet now hits me right here on the arm, it will count as an arm shot, even though it will go through my arm and then through my body. So what it does, basically the way the character moves and behaves, makes it much more likely for you to hit an arm shot compared to a chest shot or a gut shot, which has a higher damage multiplier. So there are 2 options that you can fix that. You can do it the hard way. I think CS does it that way, I'm not sure. But you calculate the highest hit multiplier the bullet goes through. So in the same example, it hits my arm, then goes through my body. The body hit multiplier will be counted instead of the arm one. That's an option. Or you could just change the hit multipliers for the arm and make them the same. Maybe like just for the hand or so, or like, maybe just the hand or so that it has a different hit multiplier, but that's something that Reddit can discuss about. Moving on, we have the HUD and the in-game res. Some pro players wanted to see this differently, so similar to skilled HUD. I think it's also cool for streams as a commentator to show that. Just allows for better customization, so I think that's also good to add if you can change that. Diffuse cancellation. This is a big issue. I've noticed this yesterday when I was streaming. When you're defusing a bomb and someone throws a gun on the C4 when you're defusing stops. You can't defuse anymore. So if this happens by accident, well, we've seen a similar thing like that during a group stage match in the ICC. I think it was back in 2016? I think it was. There was a similar thing like that. I was in the old AVA though, but that cost Team US to not go to the playoffs, so that was kind of unfortunate. Hi, Brev. But it still happens now a little bit differently. They've already done good on fixing it so that if you walk through it, it doesn't happen anymore. But with guns, it still does happen, so they need to fix that. Then some settings that are not in the game or should be on by default. The raw mouse input. I understand from Reddit that this is an unfinished setting, but having raw mouse input on makes a whole world of a difference, and it just means that your muscle memory coming from other games it just gets remembered. You know, it stays put instead of making the sensitivity feel completely different. Even if it's not, if it's an unfinished setting, just turn it on. It's already better. Like, don't make ass of it. Just turn it on. Let's see, next bit, monitor hertz. This was removed from the settings in the past because, yeah, before you just set it to basic scanning, 59 or 60 hertz. Yeah, who cares? It's basically 60 hertz. But now, with the new monitors coming around, with 144 hertz, 240 hertz, this is more important. You can already change it in the option settings file, but it's a little bit more difficult. A lot of people might not know it. Just make it a setting in-game where people can select 144, 200 hertz, or just draw it from the monitor info like Reddit is already doing for the resolutions currently. It just makes it easy and make sure that people are able to use the appropriate hertz that they have, and when they have a good monitor, that they can make use of that proper monitor. Then we have a thing with the zoom misalignment. I have a screenshot of that. It was one of the core testers that showed me this. I think it was Nesquik, so I'm going to show you this real quick. He basically, what he did, he photoshopped a crosshair into a scope modification which has a red dot. So I'm going to show you that real quick. This is what it shows. You can see the red dot is over here, but the crosshair where your bullet will land is over here. So you think you're aiming at this, but you're actually going to hit here. So this type of misalignment, even though it's very, very small, you can't have that. So that is something that they really, really do need to change. Let's see, we're basically through most of it now. We have 2 quality of lives and 2 expectations left. Looks like we're going to make for a 25-minute video, but that's okay. Ping limits for rooms. It's more of a simple request, really. Add a room option with 170 ping limit. It's a ping limit that you use in competitive plays. Then it's much easier to enforce, because if a person surpasses that, he will just be booted out or something, or can't join the room. Makes sense, very easy. Dog tags, I think they should be removed from demolition. There are more other options, but at this point, there are 2 major issues with the dog tags. One, when you pick them up, it makes sounds. I mean, I guess it makes sense for annihilation, but when you're playing competitively, you walk over a dog tag, you make sound, position is betrayed, you're screwed. The second thing, which is even a bigger issue, when you pick up 3 dog tags and you complete the dog tag score, your armor replenishes. Like, I'm not sure if this is intended, if this is a bug. If it's intended, sorry to say, but it's pretty stupid. Why would you do this? This is totally not competitive. It's really, really weird to do, and just gives people an advantage. Like, you know, like, okay, the next round coming up is very important. Just make sure we all have 2 dog tags. And you get into a fight, armor's gone, oh, let's just pick up a dog tag of the guy I just killed. Look, I have full armor again. And then you go in and you make an extra kill because you have more armor. Should not be there. Now finally, 2 expectations that I have. A 1v2 and a 2v2 map. This is something I've basically been opting for ever since late 2015, early 2016. We had the Grand Prix mode coming into the original AVA later on. You had some very good maps that it cut out. That had like a cutout of dual side of the shower area. You had like a new map for a 1v1 or 2v2 fight. I mean, if you just implement that map into the game and allow people to do 1v2, 2v2 on that, it's great as competitive play. It also creates a new dimension to competitive play. At this point, we have 5v5 demolition, and that's it. If you also have 1v2 and 2v2 annihilation, you have more types of competitive play, and this is also a good way to step up as an individual player, right? Sometimes players go unnoticed. You participate in 1v1s, 2v2s, you show like, hey, I've got good aim, I'm good at this game, and people be like, maybe we should pick him up for our team. Then you roll into a 5v5 team, you're going to show what you can do there, and then you can make your way up the ladder. So I think that's why it's a really good idea to add such map. And finally, a spectator tool. This is something that's already in the roadmap, but I'm going to mention it anyways. You could do like an esports mode for spectators, or perhaps a channel where this can be used. To toggle X-ray button for each player from 0 through 9 your keyboard, so you can easily switch through players. A nicer HUD that shows more player info, so it shows like the name, the gun, the health, like utility that it has on the side, basically like CS has as well. It looks really nice and gives a lot of information. It's very, very good if you're watching a competitive match. So this is everything that I have. I'll include a video of the pixel spot in India in the description if you want to see how that works. But this is what I think that needs to change for AVA in general to make it more of a competitive play. Of course, changing a few will already make it better. Mainly the sound, the gun mechanics, and the aim punch. Those, damage drop-off probably as well. Those 4, if you already change that, you basically already have a better game than the old AVA when it comes to competitive play. If you then change the rest, you're going to make it even better, and make it much more viable as a competitive game. And hopefully with that, you can take over the market. So I'm very curious to see what Red Duck's going to do with it. Hopefully they take in some points of this gradually for OBT full release and onwards. And I think we can make a great game out of it. So thank you very much for watching. Leave your comments below the video. Tell me what you think about it. If you have any other suggestions, I'm very much looking forward to reading those. Wow, English. And we'll meet soon again. See ya.